Title: The Longest Drive Home. The clock on my dashboard blinked 11:47 p.m. as I pulled out of the office parking lot, my body heavy with exhaustion. It had been one of those days that never seemed to end, reports piling up, emails flooding in, and my boss breathing down my neck. I just wanted to get home, collapse into bed, and leave the world behind. The road was eerily empty, the streetlights casting long, lonely shadows that stretched across the pavement. The silence inside my car felt oppressive, so I turned on the radio. Static. I flipped through the stations, but nothing came through except a faint, crackling whisper of sound. I switched it off, deciding I didn't need the extra noise. A few miles out of town, the air seemed heavier, the darkness thicker. My headlights barely cut through the dense fog that had rolled in from nowhere. It clung to the trees lining the road like ghostly tendrils, making the world feel smaller, more confined. That's when I saw it. A figure stood on the side of the road up ahead, barely illuminated by my high beams. It was a woman, or at least, it looked like a woman. Her hair hung in wet clumps around her face, and she was dressed in something pale and tattered. She didn't move as I approached, didn't even flinch when I slowed down. Her head tilted slightly as if she were watching me, but her face was wrong. It was blank, featureless, just a smooth stretch of pale skin. I slammed on the gas, my heart hammering in my chest. The image of her burned into my mind as I sped past, refusing to look in the rearview mirror. I just needed to get home. I told myself it was a trick of the fog, a figment of my overtired imagination, but my hands were shaking and I couldn't catch my breath. A few minutes later, the road straightened, and I started to relax until I saw her again. She was standing in the middle of the road this time, directly in my path. I swerved hard, tires screeching as I veered onto the shoulder and came to a jerking stop. My chest heaved, my pulse roaring in my ears. She wasn't there anymore. I stared into the darkness, scanning the road and the trees, but she was gone. The only sound was the ticking of my cooling engine and the faint rustle of leaves. Gathering my courage, I put the car in reverse, backing onto the road, and drove forward slowly, my eyes darting in every direction. The fog thickened again, and my headlights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. The engine sputtered and died, leaving me in suffocating blackness. Panic surged through me as I fumbled with the keys, twisting them in the ignition, but the car wouldn't start. That's when I heard it, a soft, wet tap-tap-tap against the window. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. Slowly, I turned my head. Through the glass, I saw her face, or what should have been her face, pressed against the window, the blank skin stretched unnaturally wide in what could only be a grin. I screamed, but no sound came out. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was her hand sliding through the glass, reaching for me. When they found my car the next morning, the doors were locked, the windows intact, but the driver's seat was empty, and the only trace of me was a faint, wet handprint smeared across the inside of the windshield.